This is the end, my only friend, the end. This is the end, my only friend, the end. Actually, I don't think that's what it is the second time. But yes, this is the end. Welcome to the final module of this course. Congratulations. Give yourself a round of applause. Give yourself a pat on the back. You have made it to the end. One more round of Terrence Mullins videos that you have to watch, and one more module that you have to do, and that's it. Everything else just sort of winds down from here. And in this module, I have also included information on the final exam and everything that you need to know. One thing I do want to emphasize is that the discussion forum for this module will actually be different than it has been for the previous modules, where the previous modules have actually been super freestyle. This module, I'm actually going to have you doing something. I'm actually going to have you looking up something and posting your findings in the discussion forum. I'll talk about that later. But what we're actually going to talk about today is a little bit of a smorgasbord of just kind of a cornucopia, a potpourri. I'm trying to think better, like more commonly used word of little tidbits about climate change that really just wrap up the course. So first, we're going to talk a little bit about Bay Area impacts. If you're watching this from one of my classes, you are enrolled in a school in the San Francisco Bay Area, at least at the time that I was recording this. You are enrolled at a school in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I think it would be good to discuss at least some of the local implications. I'm going to talk a little bit about the perception of climate change by the general public. That is an incredibly important thing to discuss and to think about. And then for the discussion board, you're actually going to be looking up and talking about a climate policy, something that's actually been done to mitigate climate change, to slow down its effects, to minimize its effects. So without further ado, let's jump in. So this first video has to do with the impacts on the Bay Area. And the Bay Area in particular, and I'm going to talk a little bit about California as a whole, but I'm going to focus on the Bay Area. The Bay Area has a pretty unique geography that actually makes it especially vulnerable to climate change. There's a lot of low-lying areas. There's a lot of wetlands, especially here in the actual bay. We have mountains that have a lot of dry vegetation that are very prone to fires. And so the reality is that, yes, there are a lot of major impacts of climate change that happen just here in the Bay Area. So let's talk about those. First, sea level rise. As I mentioned a few modules ago, as the Earth is warming up, two big things are happening. The first big thing that's happening is that our ocean waters are getting warmer. As a result, they're stretching out, they're spreading out, they're taking up more space in a phenomenon known as thermal expansion. That's the first thing that's happening, is thermal expansion. And that is actually causing waters to rise. The second equally important thing that's happening is ice on land masses such as Greenland, Alaska, as well as Antarctica are melting. And that melting is then adding water to the ocean, causing further rise. All of that to say, sea levels are rising. Now, one of the things I did mention, I did kind of give an average, this is what we think is going to happen with sea levels, but it's actually important to know that the geography of an individual's region is actually going to dictate how much sea level in that particular region rises. Here in the Bay Area, moderate predictions, sort of the midline, not the worst case scenario, but not the best case scenario, put us at just about 9/10 of a meter. That's about 3 feet. just a tad under 3 feet. This image here on the right-hand side actually indicates how much land would be covered by water. Anything you see in there that's blue is inundated, meaning that it is covered by water with just a 4/10 meter rise. That's actually a more optimistic case. And yet, if you notice, San Francisco Airport, gone. East Palo Alto, gone. Parts of the Bay Shore, gone. A big chunk of 101 underwater. Think about that. This is just 0.4, 4/10 of a meter of sea level rise. That could easily happen within our lifetimes. That's not just something that is, oh, well, our great grandchildren. No, that's something in my lifetime I can actually experience while living here in the Bay Area. And as a result, that threatens much of the coastline of this region. Now, this is actually a more optimistic prediction, but how bad can it actually get? There's a cool little website that I can show you. And let me actually share my screen and show this to you really quickly. And I do have the link right here. I can also post the link in the description of this video. But what this is right here is basically a site. This is from the SF Chronicle, so the San Francisco Chronicle. Putting together, this is actually data from the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration. They know a thing or two about our planet. The California Natural Resources Agency and the California Ocean Protection Council. They know a lot about California and our natural resources and our ecosystem. So 3 groups of people who know what they're talking about. And here's what they predict. So this is specifically the peninsula, the East Bay, and the South Bay right here. You can actually zoom out and get a bigger picture of the entire bay, including Napa Valley, Sonoma County, and so on. But I'm just focusing here because this is where the schools I teach at are at, and I assume that most of you live here, or at least have been here. And anything you see in blue would be inundated, meaning that it would be covered by water. The darker the blue, the deeper the water is. This is actually a mid-level prediction. This is 1.1 feet of sea level rise by 2050. And if you notice, a lot of places, including parts of Sunnyvale, parts of Mountain View, parts of East Palo Alto, parts of Redwood City, almost everything east of 101 would either be underwater or it would be at risk of being underwater. It would be in what's called a low-lying area, an area that even a small storm could come in and flood it. This is just by 2050. This is our lifetime right here. You can actually toggle this to see worst case scenarios. So this is the worst case scenario. So this is if we don't emit, or if we don't reduce our global emissions, and Antarctica itself has severe ice loss. In this case, bye-bye San Francisco Airport, bye-bye Redwood City, bye-bye a good chunk of Palo Alto, including Facebook headquarters, which means that your social media would go bad. Bye-bye a huge chunk of North San Jose. Bye-bye Northern Mountain View, bye-bye a good chunk of Sunnyvale. This would be really, really, really bad. Now, it only gets worse if you actually fast forward to 2100. In 2100, look at how different the Bay Area would be in 2100. Virtually everything north and east of 101, gone. Virtually everything west of 880, gone. Alameda Island would be flooded. At least a good chunk of it would be flooded. Oakland International Airport, in addition to San Francisco International Airport, gone. Think about how insane that is. Now, once again, that is a worst case scenario. That is a worst case scenario. A much more likely scenario still actually does have pretty scary implications. Once again, the idea that San Francisco Airport could be underwater. The idea that good chunks of East Palo Alto and Redwood City, some relatively poor areas as well, would be greatly impacted here. So I would recommend checking out the site, kind of toggling it around a little bit, playing around with it, and kind of seeing what the what some of the predictions are. But yeah, it is really scary to think about. So it can get pretty bad. It can get pretty bad. Now, sea level rise isn't the only thing we have to worry about, because as the sea level rises, that also means that it's moving further inland. And that means that areas that were originally very protected by coastline are now no longer protected by coastline. They're actually exposed to the ocean and exposed to the eroding effects of the ocean. The waves that are coming in and chipping at the sides, chipping at the cliffs, chipping at the rocks, little by little by little. Well, the higher the sea level becomes, the more inland those waves are going to go. And the more of that we're going to see, the more that chipping away that we're going to see. This is already happening. Right here, I have an image of Great Highway in San Francisco. If you've ever been to Ocean Beach, it's a beautiful little cafe right off of the N light rail in San Francisco. I forget what it's called. I think it's called Java Beach. Well, you walk one block west of Java Beach and you're at Ocean Beach. Very, very beautiful area. I love to go there to just kind of relax and get some peace. Well, the Great Highway, which parallels it, could actually be completely eroded over time if this problem continues to happen. Okay, so a beach is wiped out. Well, many places actually have buildings right on the beach. For example, these apartment complexes here in Pacifica. Have to think to yourself, wow, I've got this beautiful complex. I got this beautiful apartment like right on the beach. I have this beautiful view. I can have my friends over and have parties and stuff like that. Well, as sea levels continue to rise, those cliffs are being more and more eroded. That is actually weakening your foundation and could actually cause those apartments to collapse over. And I don't know about you, housing is already expensive here. Imagine what happens if we start losing our beachside property. Those people are going to move inland, putting an even bigger strain on housing. So yeah, sea level rise is something that we're really concerned about. People will have to move. We will also have to greatly change our infrastructure. Can BART lines be affected, or would BART lines be affected by sea level rise? Could our bridges be affected? Could the Bay Bridge or the DeBarton Bridge or the San Mateo Hayward Bridge, could any of those be substantially affected by this? That is scary. Yeah, people will have to move. We will have to see major redesign of infrastructure. Fewer homes will be available. That is going to take what is already a bad situation here in the Bay Area, where rents are just downright criminal, where housing prices are even worse, and there's major housing insecurity, not just for students, but even for professors, staff, faculty. There is a lot of housing insecurity here in the Bay Area. And as the world warms, and as we lose parts of the Bay to sea level rise, that's only going to become worse. Not only that, but straddling much of the inland portion or the interior portion of the Bay are wetlands. Now, some people may watch and go, oh, wetlands, whatever. I've heard conservationists say their things. I'm not going to speak to you the way that I would want somebody like Elisa Del Toro from environmental sciences at De Anza College to speak to you, or any other environmental science or environmental study about the importance of ecosystems and the importance of wetlands, I will say they are very important. Hearing those people talk, listen to them. That being said, what I will say is that wetlands also act as an important barrier for our homes. Wetlands help fortify the coastline. And if wetlands go away, our coastline is going to become more and more and more vulnerable. At the end of the day, the answer for us is to build seawalls, bulkheads, anything like that. But guess what? Those also are vulnerable. Those break down over time. So that's not good either. So yeah, that is a major threat here in the Bay Area. There are some other threats too, and I'll talk about those in the next video.